All right, welcome back to our weekly AI news recap. And wow, what a week it was! The momentum is just picking up speed, isn't it? We saw some huge, high-stakes moves from the major players. AI's footprint on the real world is getting bigger by the day, and, well, the tech itself is starting to do some things that are honestly just mind-bending. So, here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with big tech's chess moves. Then, we'll get into AI's real-world footprint. From there, we'll look at the personal and global race. And we'll wrap up with the really futuristic stuff. Builders, agents, and brains. Let's get into it. First up, big tech's AI chessboard. This is all about the rivalries, the big partnerships, and the product launches that are defining the game right now. And, we're kicking things off with a pretty serious territorial dispute that really just shows you how sharp the elbows are getting in this space. Yeah, you could say the AI Cold War is definitely heating up. The days of everyone just being friendly competitors, they might be over. This week, Anthropic put its foot down and made a really big move, cutting off Elon Musk's xAI completely. Why? They're accusing them of breaking a huge, fundamental rule. So here's the breakdown. It's actually pretty simple. Anthropic's policy is crystal clear. You cannot use our models to build or train your own competing AI. It's a big no-no. But it looks like xAI was allegedly caught with their hand in the cookie jar, using Claude to help speed up their own tool development. And, well, Anthropic's response was swift. They just cut them off, pulled the plug. Okay, so moving from conflict to, well, a massive collaboration. Google is making a huge play to completely reshape how we shop with AI. They've just unveiled something called the Universal Commerce Protocol, or UCP. And get this, they aren't going it alone. They've brought in some absolute giants like Shopify, Walmart, and even Visa to back this thing. So what does this actually look like for you? Imagine this, you're just chatting with your AI assistant, right? You ask it to find a product. It does. Then, right there in the middle of the conversation, you can buy it with Google Pay. No switching apps, no new tabs, and then the AI handles all the follow-up, the tracking, everything. It's this vision of a totally seamless agent-powered shopping world. Now, for what might be the biggest tech partnership of the year, maybe even the decade, Apple and Google are finalizing a deal for Siri. And let's be real about what this means. Apple is essentially admitting they've fallen behind in the AI race, and they're turning to their biggest rival to fix it. We're talking a multi-year deal to have Google's Gemini power the new and improved Siri. The price tag? Reportedly around $1 billion a year. And the market went wild. Google's market cap shot up, even briefly topping $4 trillion. Just wow. All right, let's shift gears. We're moving on to AI's real-world footprint. Because all this stuff, it isn't just happening in boardrooms or on our screens, right? It's having a massive impact on the physical world, from the infrastructure being built to power it all to some pretty big gaps it's creating around the globe. So Microsoft just dropped a new report with a pretty interesting number. They're predicting that by the end of 2025, about 16.3% of the world's working-age population will be using AI. Okay, sounds like a decent start, but that headline number is actually hiding a much more complicated and honestly a much more unequal story. And here's that story in a chart. It's pretty stark. The global north, or developed nations, are adopting AI way faster, at almost double the rate of developing economies. And what's really concerning is that the gap between them isn't shrinking. It's getting wider. We're basically watching a new kind of global divide being drawn, and it's all about who has access to AI. So to power all this AI, you need an insane amount of infrastructure. And Meta is not messing around. To fuel their own ambitions, they've announced a truly jaw-dropping investment. We're talking $600 billion committed to U.S. infrastructure by 2028. It's all part of a new initiative they're calling Meta Compute. That is just a staggering amount of money. But, building all these massive data centers has a downside. Local communities are starting to push back, worried about their electricity grids and water supplies. So Microsoft is trying to get ahead of this with what they're calling a Good Neighbor initiative. They're making some big promises, pledging their data centers won't raise local electricity prices, committing to replenish more water than they use, paying their full property taxes, and even investing in local job training. It's a clear attempt to smooth things over. And just to show you the incredible positive side of all this compute power, check this out. There's a UK startup called Basecamp Research that used AI trained on the DNA of 1 million different species. And the results? They are just stunning. The AI designed brand new medical treatments. 63% of its gene editing tools actually worked. And get this, a whopping 97% of the antibiotics it designed were effective against dangerous superbugs. That's a real game changer. Okay, let's zoom in a bit. We're going to talk about the personal and global race. So how is all this tech changing our day-to-day tools? What does it mean for things like intellectual property? And how is it shaking up the competition between nations? You know, Google has always had a massive trump card up its sleeve, its ecosystem. And now they're finally playing it. There's a new Gemini beta feature called Personal Intelligence. What it does is let Gemini reason across all your personal Google stuff, your Gmail, your photos, your calendar, to give you incredibly proactive and personalized answers. It's the kind of deep integration that will be almost impossible for their competitors to replicate. All right. As AI gets scarily good at creating deepfakes, people are getting creative with how they protect their identity. Case in point, Matthew McConaughey. He's actually trademarked his famous catchphrase, along with his voice and his likeness, basically trying to build a legal wall to keep AI from messing with his persona. It's a pretty wild sign of the times. And over in the global arena, China is showing that it will not be slowed down by things like chip sanctions. A Chinese AI company, Zhipu AI, just dropped a really powerful open-source image generator. But here's the kicker. It was trained entirely on Huawei's own Ascend chips. That means it completely bypasses any reliance on US tech. This is a huge signal that China is successfully building its own self-reliant AI powerhouse. Okay, for our last section, we're going to the bleeding edge. Builders, agents, and brains. This is where the talent wars are getting absolutely brutal, and where we're starting to see AI itself become the creator, and maybe even start connecting directly with us. Speaking of those talent wars, things got really dramatic this week. There's a super high-profile startup called Thinking Machines, founded by an ex-OpenAI big shot, Mira Murati. Well, they just lost a key co-founder. It was a pretty big shakeup. But here's where the story gets crazy. Just hours after that departure, the CEO of applications at OAI, that's OpenAI, posted a simple message. Welcome back. And it turns out that co-founder and a bunch of other staffers had literally just boomeranged straight back to OpenAI. It all played out in public, and it gives you a raw, unfiltered look at just how intense and, frankly, how ugly this battle for talent can get. Now let's talk about what AI can build on its own. The scale here is just... it's hard to wrap your head around. The team at Cursor recently ran an experiment where a team of AI agents wrote code. And in under a week, for just a single project, they wrote over 3 million lines of code. That's not a typo. 3 million. So what did they build with all that code? A web browser. A complete, fully functional web browser, built from scratch by a swarm of AI agents working together. This is a massive leap. We're not just talking about AI writing little bits of code anymore. This is AI handling a whole complex project, from concept to execution. It's a whole new level of autonomous capability. And finally, it seems the rivalry between Sam Altman and Elon Musk has a new battleground: our brains. OpenAI has become the biggest seed investor in a brain-computer interface startup called Merge Labs. It was co-founded by Altman himself, and it's a direct competitor to Musk's Neuralink. The big difference? Merge's tech uses ultrasound to read brain signals, meaning no surgery. OpenAI is going to help them build the models to actually interpret all that brain data. So when you look back at this week, the one word that comes to mind is acceleration. Everything is moving faster. The corporate strategies, the infrastructure builds, the capabilities of the tech itself. I mean, we're now at a point where AI is building its own complex tools, and we're getting ready to have it interface with our brains. Which leaves us with a really big question to think about. As AI starts to take on more of the work of creation, what does that mean for us? What's the new frontier for human creativity?